Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi.
Hello friends. If you're here, then you probably want to hear about Tacticus' newest game mode, Crusade. Obviously I'll take you through everything in my usual level of detail, but if I was to summarize things briefly, Crusade is a 10-week rolling game mode. For 9 of those weeks, the gameplay burden should be relatively low. You get points just by playing the game like you usually do. And then in week 10 there is a more active culmination called Crescendo. There is a guild element to things, but you're also free to play and get most rewards individually, which feeds into the new shop, the Crusade shop, which gives you new, unique rewards. It takes a bit of time to get to grips with a game mode, as is often the case, and actually playing the game will be more instructive than anything I tell you, but let me try and make this video as useful as possible. I guess it's worth pointing out at this early stage that Snowprint have given us some brief guidelines and the opportunity to test for a few weeks prior to this video going out. However, there's no extensive user manual, and a lot of the stuff that I share here has been reverse engineered through playtesting and could theoretically be subject to change. There are 3 things that come alongside Crusade, not quite enough to call them unique game modes, but certainly distinct enough that I'll talk about them in 3 different sections. You've got Crusade itself, then you've got operations, and then you've got guild projects. We'll start with the biggest and the video namesake, Crusade. Crusade at its core pits 2 teams against each other. On one side we have the Imperium, and on the other we have the combined forces of the Xenos and Chaos, called Devastation. I'm the guild leader for this test account, so when I load in, I'm immediately asked to choose a side for which my guild will be fighting for. All of the non-guild leader players in this guild are then asked to pick a side and a faction, so for example I've chosen a random Xenos faction, Tau. Then I'm also asked to pick a faction on the other side. For now I'll pick the Adeptus Custodes, and I'll explain why you have to do this in a second. There is an initial prep window where players just kind of pick their factions and wait for the Crusade to start. The choice of this faction has no real gameplay ramifications, at least for now. You will not be rewarded for playing with this faction nor using characters or abilities. You just have to pick whatever is your favourite. After the initial prep phase, the Crusade runs over 10 weeks and is split into 3 phases. Phase 1, which is what we'll cover in this video, is expansion and lasts for weeks 1 to 6. Phase 2, Domination, lasts for weeks 7 to 9, and then we have that final Phase 3, Crescendo, in week 10. At time of recording, the Domination and Crescendo phase aren't fully fleshed out yet, so we'll come back to them later. Phase 1 is nice and easy. You start on the far left of the map. Planets on the right side are locked to you at the start. You pick any available planet and sort of settle there, picking it as a target. Your guild leaders and co-leaders have the option, kind of like in war, to ask you to focus on a planet, denoted in green, but you are free to ignore them. You can move your planet, but I'll discuss that later. There should also normally be an operations icon in the bottom left of the screen, but for technical reasons it isn't showing in this build, and I'll come back to operations later anyway. That's pretty much it. Now you just go out and play the game like you would normally. You can complete campaigns, fight in arena battles, guild raid, and guild war. All of those points are added to your faction and through it to your side of the Crusade Alliance. Whichever side of the Crusade Alliance has the most point captures the planet, and within that, the faction that has contributed the most points, say Tau or Black Legion, then conquers that planet in the faction's name. You and your guild can switch focus during the week and hop from planet to planet, or dedicate all of your time and efforts to a single planet. That might have some effect on your rewards, as I'll explain later. So now we fast forward a week. Phase 1 has completed, and you can see that on this occasion, basically the only testers were Devastation players, which is why the map looks as it does. When you click on a planet, you can see who the contributors were by faction, but can't impact progress or points any longer. Now, the next sector to the right has opened up, and you have essentially the same gameplay loops. Settle on your planet, play the game, and either succeed or fail in capturing your planet. 6 sectors and 6 weeks for expansion, so it should be fairly obvious how things play out for the remainder of the expansion phase. Beyond playing the game organically, you can also spend resources to impact the planet. Ordnance can be spent by any player. Spending 100 ordnance adds 1000 points to your score for the planet. You can see these little bombs being dropped on the planet and my score ticking up slowly. Guild leaders and co-leaders spend orbital bombardments, which add 150,000 points to the Imperium or Devastation effort, divided amongst guild players who are on the planet. Visually, the bomb that drops on the planet is much bigger than the ordnance one. Then you've got Reinforce. This costs 250 reinforcement currency and lets you gain 10% more points for everything you do, including ordnance and orbital bombardment. It is stackable, so it can be applied multiple times to the same planet if you wish. It only applies to future points that you would earn on the planet. Mass reinforcements is another guild leader or co-leader option. It lets all guild members on the planet gain a 20% boost to their crusade points on the planet, and again it also applies to future points. It does stack with reinforce, and you get some cool visuals. The reward for this game mode is Crusade Currency, which you can spend at the Crusade shop. I'll cover that shop towards the end. If you capture a planet and contribute it to the attack effort, then you get a small amount of currency. Actually winning a planet, at least based on current rewards, appears to have a very small impact on the total currency earned through Crusade. You get 15 points for winning a planetary expansion phase. You also gain currency based on your leaderboard position. So there are 2 leaderboards for every planet. First, you have the Imperium or Devastation leaderboard. In this case, I would be competing against all of the other Xenos and Chaos players on the planet for a chest. Then there is also a Tau-specific leaderboard where I compete against other Tau players on the planet. If you want to, you can look at how the other factions are doing to see who those leaders are too. Beyond that, there are also 4 overall leaderboards. Here is the player leaderboard, where you're ranked on total Crusade points regardless of affiliation to faction or alliance. Again, these give chest rewards and also give you Lycus shards, who is the new legendary that is a Crusade unlock exclusive, at least for now. Lycus is awesome, and a quick plug to my showcase in case you haven't seen that yet. Then you have the faction leaderboard. Here, every player is ranked within their faction by how much they contribute to the points total. Also, you can see factions other than your own here, and again, chest rewards are based on position. Then you have the guilds leaderboard. Here, guilds are ranked by their combined contributions to the mode, and again you get chest rewards based on your position. The final leaderboard is how you stack up against your other guildmates. This is really just for bragging rights and doesn't reward any credits. That's the surface level explanation to it all, but as you would expect, there is much more to it. I've listed some theoretical, frequently asked questions here. 1. Can you move planets after you've made your initial choice? Yes, you can. I could spend the first 2 days on planet A and contribute to the Tau effort there, and then move on to planet B and contribute to the Tau effort there. I would be lower down on both of those planet leaderboards since they are separate planets, but theoretically I could jump around and help fight as many planets as I want to. There is no limit to the amount of times I can jump, nor any cooldown. I could conceivably spend 5 minutes on every planet and just keep planet hopping. So the follow-up to that is, what is stopping you from moving from planet to planet, spending a little bit of time on each one, and potentially getting multiple planetary rewards at the end of each week? Well, there is a minimum amount of points you have to earn before you qualify for rewards. I believe that's currently set at 2,000 points. Question 3. Can you tell who else is on your world? As far as I can tell, no. The only way that you can tell is based on leaderboard names, but that won't be an exhaustive list. Now, what about points? There's lots of Crusade points that you can earn, and there's 4 game modes that award them. I'll take you through them one by one. Fighting in campaigns versus raiding campaigns gives you the same static amount of points, but if you spend the lightning token thing on campaign events, you get slightly more bang for buck. That is the 2-ticket raid thing that you can do in campaign events, but not in the normal campaign. Also, the early Indomitus missions seem to be better bang for buck, but the trade-off is the rewards, or rather lack thereof. You also earn points for playing in Arena, with an increment of 4 points as you climb up the leagues. So a win in the top Arena League will get you 60 Crusade points. In Honor Guard you get 52 points, and so on. Lose in Arena and you don't get any Crusade points. You earn points in Guild Wars simply by participating, and this is scaled based on battlefield level, up to a maximum of 520 Crusade points for Battlefield 5. It appears that you get the same amount of points for winning and losing a war battle, and at the moment these look like these are simply awarded based on participation at your current battlefield level. It's the same idea for raids. I've created a big table here after exploring the points you get for different battles. It seems that you have a minimum score and a maximum score that is defined by the rarity of the boss you face and the amount of damage that you've done. You know the damage brackets that are described things like Glorious Battle? Anyway, there are 6 of them, and I've provided a screenshot from the recent Cesare Hero release event to show you which ones are the high and low ones. You get the same amount of points for battling side bosses and main bosses. Here is the table showing the calculations, and you can look to see what you might expect to earn. What about modifiers, some of you may ask? I expect that as a League of Votann player, there's not going to be as many allies for me as, say, Ultramarines. You're right. you might see that your points totals in Crusade are slightly modified. That is to say, you might think that you've earned 60 points for an arena battle, but when you go into your planet, you've scored something like 70 points. There is an internal balancing system that Snowprint have devised to give players a points-based multiplier based on the player count of each faction. That way, if there are only 2 Leagues of Votann players in the game, they aren't penalized too much with 0 chance to win the planets. What happens, you might ask, if you switch guilds halfway through a crusade? If the guild is on the same side, say Imperium or Devastation, then nothing really changes apart from possibly the target that your guild leaders have designated. If you switch to the other side, then you start accruing points for your fallback faction. So in my case, I would start getting points for the Adeptus Custodes. My Tau points and contributions would still exist, and I would get rewards based on the number of points I earned for each faction. The final FAQ that I'll address is about world types and points. There are different types of worlds, and each falls into a different category. You've got a giant hive world that gives you 6 points, a normal hive world that gives you 3 points, and other planets give you 1 point. At the moment, we don't know the significance of these points. Right, thanks for bearing with me. We'll come back to Domination and Crescendo probably in a later video once those modes are fleshed out. Now remember how we spoke about the 2 other things that launch alongside Crusade? Well, let me take you to Operations. Operations are missions that you send your characters on and they return after a set amount of time with Crusade points and special Crusade currencies, like Forces and Ordnance like we discussed earlier. It can also award another currency called Intel that I'll discuss in the next section. Snowprint have made these operations pretty straightforward to understand. In this first example, I am asked to meet 5 requirements: 2 Deep Strike, 2 Terminator, and 1 Unstoppable. You can filter by trait to select characters, and after I've selected Rask and Angrax, you can see that I've actually met all 5 of the requirements already. I can pick whoever I want for the last 2 slots, so here I chose Asolf and Dante because they aren't maxed, and I can get some experience points for sending them out on this operation. To make life easier, you can also use the autofill button at the bottom of the screen, and the game will populate with characters to sort you out. To illustrate a point, I'll remove the auto-populated list and choose 5 random characters. You can see now that because I don't meet all 5 requirements, I don't get the bonus Crusade points nor currency. You get 1 refresh of your missions for free each day, after which it costs increasing amounts of blackstone. There are different mission rarities denoted by the border around missions, and I'll just bring the starter pop-up again. The operation board is automatically tailored to your player level. Higher rarity operations, as you would expect, award better stuff, and the initial offers are based on your player level. Then completing operations lets you rank up and get better operation boards. Fear not, sending the characters off on an operation only means that they can't be deployed for another operation. It has no impact on other game modes. For example, if Carrion is off doing an operation, I can still use him in Arena or Guild Raids, for example. The rank up chests also have some pretty nice rewards, as you can see on screen at the moment. One final thing, and this is probably the briefest of the bunch. Guild projects are finally here. They are unlocked at level 5 and accessible via the same series of tabs that lets you look at guild chat. When you load in, there are no active projects, but when you go to the inactive tab, you can find projects to choose from. These guild projects award the Crusade currency that impacts all of your guildmates. So for example, you can get orbital bombardments, which give your guild 150k points divided amongst your guildmates, or mass reinforcements, which give your guildmates a 20% boost to future points earned on that world. Guild leaders activate the projects they want, and then the guild goes about trying to progress them. In addition to earning progress points as the mission describes, so in this case defeating enemies with flame damage, you can also donate some smaller currency and help turn it into the big stuff. So for this first project, I can spend Ordnance and Intel, a currency that I earned during operations, to donate and turn them into progress points. Similarly, for the second project, I can spend Forces and Intel to progress towards mass reinforcements. To start with, there are only 2 guild projects, and I believe more will be added in the future. Guild leaders will be able to choose the ones they wish. There is one small difference in the second project. If you chose Devastation, like I have, then you'll get a project that asks you to kill Imperial characters in Arena. If you chose the Imperium side, then you are asked to instead kill enemies with Imperial characters. That's it for now in terms of projects. When you complete a project, then it goes back into the inactive area and you can choose it again, but the thresholds are higher, so instead of killing 3,000 units, it becomes 5,000, then 7,000, and so on. So let's look at the shop next. What does this game mode offer us and what are the rewards? In the top row of the shop is character shards, with Lycus as the featured character each day. One character shard is earned for 50 currency. The next two rows are equipment, and this includes selected relics. On release of Crusade, this will include Harkin's unique relic, Hellspear, as well as Anufet's Phasal Subjugator. The row below generally has a mythic upgrade in the first slot, although I appreciate a legendary as shown here, as well as mythic salvage and forge badges. The bottom row has a legendary upgrade slot, salvage and coins. I'll add that stuff on offer may change and vary depending on your account level, but this seems to be what is available. Most notably, no books, badges, or orbs. I guess the metaphorical million-dollar question is, how much currency will players expect to earn each week? We need to know this before we can analyze the value and how we might prioritize our shop purchases. Currency earned is broken down as shown. Planetary rewards, both for faction and your side, weekly, and then you've got your overall leaderboard rewards. The global players, global faction, and global guild awards are paid out every 2 weeks for the expansion phase, so you get a total of 3 of these payouts for the first 6 weeks. Assuming that you only fight on one planet per week, this table should show how much a player would expect to earn if they are in the top 20, 40, or 60%. As you can see, the largest rewards come from how well your guild places. All of the other parts are up to your individual performance. If we compare planet and global numbers, doing well on individual planets offers more rewards than performing well globally, so a strategic approach will pay off. Remember the 15 points that you get for winning a planet? Well, when you put that into the context of the season earnings, it really is a small amount. Trying to understand these numbers, one Lycus shard costs 50 currency, so a top 20% player gets 9,135 currency, which converts to around 183 shards by the end of the 6-week expansion phase, provided you don't buy anything else. You also will get a few Lycus shards through the global chest rewards, but we also don't know yet how Domination and Crescendo will play out, nor what the rewards will be there. For completeness, I have a table here showing how many points each of the different thresholds of chest rewards gives at the moment. I'll leave it on screen, but I don't think it hugely matters, as you'll play and end up sitting where you sit. Okay, so that's a lot to take in. Thanks Mrs. Nandi for editing this together. I appreciate that we only have the first 6 weeks to analyze the mode, but I think that the cooler stuff is probably to come in the domination and expansion phases. On the surface, I'm cautiously optimistic. It's a new game mode, yes, but the screen time that I need to dedicate to playing it seems relatively low. It gives me an avenue to earn some extra resources, and I do enjoy the tribal slant to things, given how tribal and faction-based 40k is in general. It's difficult to make a full assessment without knowing how the next 2 phases will play out. My criticisms or concern at this stage are about 2 things. I'm not a fan of the grinding missions for guild projects. Gating the big Crusade resources behind grinding projects asks for a lot of screen time by nature, and I have enough to do already. Completing a guild project just unlocks the same one with an even higher requirement threshold, which is just more grinding and therefore unexciting for me. The other thing is the options on offer in the Crusade shop. Lycus shards are awesome and I'm really excited about the character, and more ways to get relics is good, but beyond that, I'm not super excited about the shop. Gold is always nice, I guess, but I would have loved to see experience books or orbs here. Okay, that was super long, sorry, thanks for bearing with me. A massive thank you to Mrs. Nandi for again editing this together, and all of those who support me. I'll hopefully see you all soon, bye.